very much to everybody. Firstly, I will take some minutes to thank our Seon Master Daehaeng always had this habit, and I want to thank you all masters, the abbess and president of the Hamon Sun Center, and Venerable Master Daehaeng, and my wife, who had to bear me along all this year, because I've been working and studying, and I have my sister-in-law here today. Thirdly, the interpreter who is in the booth, who translates into 3 languages and is working all the time. And finally, to everybody present here. And I say finally because I receive all your energy. From the moment that we arrived to Korea, you gave us so much caring treats, and we've been talking with our practitioners from the branch of Germany and other branches. It's a kind of fuel. And I'm being sleeping 4 hours a day, but I am still standing. And on the trip, I think it is special because we came to Korea with the beginning of spring times. I remember what Seon Master Daehaeng said about spring. Somebody went looking for it, and when he returned home, found his tree in blooming. And this is special because I have this spring energy inside of me, thanks to all of you. Let's begin with my theme. I follow the original theme about the pandemic 2019, the 21st century paradigm analyzed under the teachings of Seon Master Daehaeng. I would like to convey to you how the pandemic affected everybody living in Argentina, and how lived this experience practitioners as non-practitioners, as Professor Park said already. I analyzed the 4 dimensions of what was going on in Argentina, from the governance perspective, family life, how this affected our habits and customs, and the changes in the labor world, and lastly, in the ecosystem. I think that this is very important because Seon Master Daehaeng always emphasizes about the caring of our planet. And I developed a preliminary study, qualitative study, based on surveys, with 12 questions to 2 groups, a control group of practitioners, a control group of non-practitioners, to see how the practice worked. I want to clarify that this is not a final judgment. It's only to show a tendency, because the sample was very small. There were only 35 participants. But I want to leave the doors open to the HANSI, so you can apply the same methodology in all the branches and see the results in. And we can in this way convey the proof that the scientific world always requires paradigm. Surely many of you know what this means. The dictionary defines it as a path to follow, and it became fashionable in the mid-1960s with Thomas Kuhn, a philosopher, with his book, The Structure of Scientific Revolution. He defined paradigms as theories that are not discussed in the scientific world and lead to solve problems in a certain time. If you read the books about paradigms, you can find the example of the Swiss watch industry in the beginning of the 1970s. The watchmakers who were very proud of their work, the precision of their watches and elegance. But Swiss scientists discovered the quartz movement, and they went to talk with watchmakers to present the new discovery, but they were not interested, because they said the consumers will not buy this kind of watches. But as a result, 90,000 workplaces were diminished to 28,000 workstations. And then we have the industry of hybrid watches. I think that you know very well the allegory of the cave of Plato. He describes that in a cave there is a group of men in prison since birth, change, unable to turn their heads away from the cave's back wall. And they only see shadows projected on the wall because there is a bonfire, and they can observe the figures, and they think that this is the real world. And Plato poses, what do you think would happen if we can free one of the prisoners and he can go to see what there is outside? And then he goes back to his mates, but the former prisoners would consider that he had become insane and even attempt to kill him. I think that in a simple way, Seon Master Daehaeng described this very well with the concept of wall of fixed ideas. And she said, if there were a prison that would be more terrible than any other prison in the world, that is the prison of thought, the world of fixed ideas. And this is linked to the pandemic. I think that it was a wall of fixed ideas, because international governance didn't find a path at the beginning of the pandemic. It was the same case which WHO, they doubted about the face masks, if they would help us to prevent the disease or not. And about Argentina, what happens with governance. I will give you a picture of our situation. We had a presidential year, the previous year, and in March, the pandemic was decreed. The Argentine President Fernandez had to take decisions between alternatives of public policies in the name of the public welfare. And in this particular case, pandemic made the decision-making very difficult because they were not programmed or routinary. And the lack of planning and processing led to erratic decisions. And decisions were taken not in a professional table or political arena where they think more about the welfare of the general public. You can see it's a wonderful this tool. Here you can see how many people died. The cumulative confirmed the COVID-19 deaths per million people among different countries. And this graph begins from January of 2020 to March of 2021. And Argentina had more than 1,000 million deaths. And maybe you say that they are similar figures between different countries, but we had a very severe and long lockdown. And people over the 64 years age in European countries is 1.5 million, but in Argentina, more than 11. You know that the virus attacked the elderly population, and European government took care more about the elderly population. And we have so many information and data on internet that we have to be careful. The School of Government of University, Torquato di Tella University, gave us this table of index based on survey to the general public or citizens about the presidential image and a scale that goes from 0 to 5 about his honesty, his capability to solve problems, if his policy decisions are focused to the general public or private sectors, and managing of expenditure. And you can see the results. In 2020, he had 3.3 point of trust, but along the lockdown in October of 2021, he had a decrease in his image to 1.5 points. What did happen with this perception? You can see the poverty index in Argentina in this table. And quarterly, you can see what happened. In the first quarter of 2020, we had a 38% of progress, and after 3 months, we have 47%, because we had a stoppage in the economic activity, and the government policies were focused to subsidiaries. They had 100 euros granted by the government. I don't want to criticize the government policy. We'll see the results on the exploratory study later on. I think that this was one of the most transcendental events in the 21st century. And what happened in the family life? I have only 20 minutes, so I took a survey carried out by UNICEF, an international organization for the children of the UN. UNICEF surveyed the families telephonically to 6 million of households with a representation of 26 million individuals. You can see the different colors on the map. 55% of women over the age of 18 had a burden of household chores. 62% of youngsters assisted with household chores. And you can see that if the youngster participated with more household chores, they had little time to study. 79% of students were in communication with their schools through e-learning. And it is interesting to note that only 20% of homes increased had different fights and anger between its members in Argentina. What happened in the labor world? I want to refer to Alvin Toffler. I read him in the 90s, and he wrote about the third wave, where he discussed about the agricultural wave, the industrial wave, and the last one, an information technological wave, where he described individuals as islands, interconnected and interdependent. WhatsApp, KakaoTalk, Zoom, we are connected by social media, but not physically. Here, I want to show you the battle between the presentiality or virtuality. As practitioners, for example, in this moment, I am accommodated in a hotel. I can ask for more soup if I need it. And a software engineer can work from home because he only delivers results. But an office worker can have a hybrid mode of working. Some days in his workplace, other days from his home. There is Korea, don't worry, in the map. In green you can see that 25% to 31% of Argentinians worked virtually. In comparison to United States and Europe, we have a lower index because the United States had a 53%. And this must be accompanied by the technological structure of every country. Korea had a higher index in this sense. And what happened with ecosystem? As practitioners, we know how Seon Master Daehaeng highlighted about the care of our ecosystem and our planet. Here you can appreciate this satellite image of the level of nitrogen dioxide in Buenos Aires atmosphere before and after the implementation of the mandatory isolation. This pollution index measures the nitrogen dioxide, which is the combustion of fossil fuels with the contact with oxygen, and this is what pollutes our air. And this comes from the automotive or automobile industry. You can see the spots and the pollution we had on March. And the 20th of March, these dots got dispersed in an Argentine province called Córdoba. You can see the map of Córdoba, an average from March 10th to 18 and from 20 to 28. The pollution of nitrogen dioxide in the atmosphere. It's almost white, the second picture. And I don't want to get in the debate about do we have to industrialize or not. I think that the renewable resources are important in this sense. And we have our friends in the animal kingdom. In Argentina, carpincho or capybara began to appear in the city. You can appreciate here a puma in the streets of Santiago, Chile, or a deer in Japan. You can see how we are. We have these animals, the animal kingdom, with us and without restrictions, how they moved. And about the exploratory study that I carried out, the results must be interpreted as a trend, not as a judgment. It is not a representative sample. The Hammam Science Institute research can apply to, in a broader sense, later on. The scope of the study was limited to Tucumán and Buenos Aires using the Google Analytic tools, and I presented 12 questions. Google resulted very usefully in this sense. Which were the indicators in these 12 questions? The profile of the participants and their perception about governance, family relationship, labor world, virtuality or presentiality, and climate change. And this survey consisted of practitioners divided in two gender groups. We had, in this first group, 8 women and 9 men. In the other group of non-practitioners, only 3 women. Do you remember what I said about the UNICEF survey, how women were surveyed with overload over household chores? This has to do with family arguments and conflicts, and I will discuss about this point later on. The age. The 2 groups were composed of generations of baby boomers and X. Those are born from the 40s to 80s. In the practitioners group, we have more youngsters. And in the non-practitioners, we have more centennials. Every generation has its own experiences and postures. Baby boomers and X generation, we saw so many changes through the time. About the governance, we will see what happened. The first question to both of the groups was, at the outbreak of the lockdown, how would you rate the measures taken by the government as highly effective or misguided? The general tendency was very similar in both groups. 52% and 58% said highly effective. And this is only at the outbreak of the pandemic. And what happened later on? How would you currently rate the government's performance in regards to the measures taken? Extremely good, good, average, and poor. The practitioners group rated we have a different proportional responses, whereas in the group of non-practitioners there was a negative view. Do you believe that the government acted appropriately with regards to the administration of vaccines? The practitioners said in 70% yes, and the non-practitioners group no, the 90%. I think that the practitioners were not so worried about the vaccine program. The practitioners, I think, had this attitude because of more tolerance. They had more tolerance in face of the government policies, and they were more empathic. It means that the government was in critical situations, so they accepted it with more tolerance. And about the family life, where is the slide that I am needing for? Here it is. I to survey about the family field, I had to know how the families of the both groups were composed of. How many individuals, including yourself, resided in your home during the mandatory quarantine? In the non-practitioners group, were smaller families. What was your primary pastime or hobby? Both of the groups said the platform to see movies. It was the most popular. And then the internet. And here, during the mandatory quarantine, did the number of misunderstandings or daily conflicts arose in your family group on a daily basis? It was the same in both groups. And maybe you ask me, why, if the practitioner and non-practitioner, why is that this happened in both groups? Because, firstly, the UNICEF survey said that 58% of the women were overloaded with household chores. This took them from took them out of the comfort zone. And the other side, on the other hand, the practitioners had more members in the family. So there was more practice in the practitioners group and more tolerance than in the other non-practitioners group. Did you practice meditation during the mandatory quarantine? Obviously, the practitioners in 76%, whereas in non-practitioners group, they did not. Did you believe that teleworking or learning using new technologies is superior or more advantageous than to face-to-face interaction? 76% of the practitioners preferred the presentiality, the face-to-face interaction, and the non-practitioners grew at 64%. And this is due to the fact that we always gathered in Dharma reunions, or it is not the same to be in the Dharma hall than to watch the ceremony from home. And about ecology, regarding the decrease in pollution, were you aware of climate change during your quarantine? Yes or no? 81% of practitioners said yes, and this is because of the Seon Master Daehaeng's teachings. Do you remember that this was analyzed under the teachings of Seon Master Daehaeng? So, the conclusion is that we must observe our conflicts and problems and to keep observing, even if the sky collapses. As regards to governance, the practitioners group shows more tolerance. Seon Master Daehaeng always said our decisions are not limited. We have to take into account the invisible and visible realm. Of course, that political leaders cannot see in this way, but many of the measures taken by the government didn't suit us. One example is that of the people who could not bid farewell to their beloved dead families members. They were very rigid and static policies applied by the government. About the family, we saw more efficiency in the practitioners group because caring for others is caring for the planet, as Seon Master Daehaeng said to us. And regarding to the presentiality or virtuality, Seon Master Daehaeng always urged in businesses through her Dharma talks to promote meetings in the labor environment to strengthen relationship between managers and employees. And about pollution, the Earth is like the human body, but there were people who intervened and who acted as physicians, but who are not the ones. In homage to Seon Master Daehaeng, with her smile that you see in this picture, I want to share these 4 points. Firstly, everything depends on ourselves. Secondly, we have to think that everything happens because we need to learn something about it. Thirdly, we cannot blame others because one must interpret it that did something similar in the past. And fourthly, every confrontation must be faced with optimism, even in dreams. And this is not in the slide, but I want to share an experience with you about Seon Master Daehaeng. I had an audience with her in 2008, my first trip to Korea. It was on January. It was very cold. I bought flowers as a gift. I remember that the late Abbot received me, and she said that Seon Master Daehaeng is not conceding odysseys. And I said to her, but I came from the other end of the world. I need to see her. My wife got angry because she said, you are being egoist. But we were, the late Haewon Jujise님 invited us to have a lunch in the temple. Finally, we get the opportunity to have an audience. But in a moment, my wife gets so emotional that she retired from the room, and I remained there in front of Seon Master Daehaeng. And you must say that maybe I am crazy, but I think that her were the bluest eyes that I ever seen. And I thought, I am in front of a Buddha, but I can say nothing because I don't know Korean. But from the moment, I think that she scanned me all through, and she said to me, keep practicing. And that's all. Thank you very much.